Now,
turn
down
the lights.
You're
listening to
Somewhere in
Dreamland.
Welcome back, dreamers. My guest for tonight is internationally renowned psychic medium Ericka Boussarhane. Ericka was born in Pensacola, Florida, and she comes from a family of female psychics. And while her earlier encounters with the paranormal left her frightened, during college she began developing her intuition as she studied psychology. In 2004, she began reading tarot, channeling professionally in New Age stores, psychic festivals, and on TV. She studied psychic development and mediumship through the Astrological Institute of Integrated Studies, where John Edwards received training in psychic development, tarot, and numerology. Ericka has been featured on numerous TV shows and radio programs and was the host of 2 radio shows herself, Whispers from the Heart and Paranormal CSI. Along with this, she's the founder of Second Sight Paranormal Investigations and Second Sight Forensic Services, where she volunteers her abilities to assist families and law enforcement departments with missing persons and cold case files. Ericka, thank you for joining me tonight. I'm glad we finally got to hook up. I was a little worried there for you.
Yeah, it's just like it's not Mercury retrograde, but it almost seemed like it today.
Hey, it happens, sometimes life just gets you,
Yeah. I'm glad everything worked out, so we were able to do this. So this is awesome.
Me as well, because I was super excited. I'm telling you, I've been talking to my wife all week, and I'm like, hey, look, I can't wait to talk to Ericka. I'm like so excited to talk with Ericka. Like all week, I'm like, you got to listen. Like, cause my wife doesn't listen to my shows. Isn't that weird? Yeah, I
understand. It's kind of she lives with you, so she hears you talking about awesome stuff all the time.
Yeah, and all I do is talk, so like I'm sure she gets sick of that too.
Yeah.
Hey, so Ericka, tell me a little bit about your childhood. And you kind of had these gifts when you were a child, but you didn't really understand them. Is that right?
Yeah, so my mom and a lot of the family members were very intuitive growing up, and I remember as a young girl, my mom used to play with all things the Ouija board, and she was really interesting and kind of hippie. And from a young age, I would see shadow figures in the apartment, and I didn't really know that it was wrong or different. And, when she started playing with the Ouija board, she would communicate with spirits. And later on, I would see spirits in my home, in this apartment. I would hear noises in the attic. I would see later a gentleman that died, a dentist that my mom worked for. I would see him on my bed talking to me, and he was dead. And then fast forward, I see The Exorcist, and I start thinking about, the noises in my attic, and I started thinking about my mom playing with the Ouija board, and I started thinking about the Bible Belt that I was in and how I were possibly communicating with a demon, or there was a demon in my attic, and I wanted nothing to do with this ability.
Yeah, I can understand that, especially after watching that movie. That movie, it still gives me the creeps, like it's a creepy movie.
It definitely is a creepy movie. And the worst thing about watching it is that I was turning away from the TV because she was talking, and, Raven was just scary. And when I turned away from the TV, I actually turned in front of a dresser that had a mirror, and I literally could see the TV in the mirror.
Oh, yeah.
So, it was a double fear, and now I'm obsessed with mirrors and have them all over my house. But yeah, that movie changed my life in many, many ways. It scared the crap out of me, but it definitely hindered my abilities.
Yeah, I can understand that. So you mentioned this dentist that came to you. Was that the first apparition that you actually saw when you were a child?
Well, when I would look at the sun when I was a little girl, I could always see rays of what I would call rainbows around them. I know that when I was little too, they said that I would see things and I had like a vivid imagination, possibly an imaginary friend that I don't remember. But he is the first one that I credit it to because it was really life-changing for me. We'd gone to his funeral that day. That evening, he had come and sat on my bed, and at that time, I really didn't have an understanding that I was seeing a ghost. I just knew that, like, I don't know. I don't understand how I didn't realize that he was dead, but, I mean, we had put him in the grave and was at his funeral, but it was just the weirdest thing. Like, I could see him as a real person, and I can imagine that he was a little, the way that I always see him, he's a little bit not fleshy, but he's see-through in some way, but he's all apparition. I mean, he's in his form, the way that I remembered him. And he was talking to me about, like, future things. And he was telling me, that I was a good girl and that I would go to school. And, it was almost like he was a mentor to me and my mom growing up, a very nice guy, and a role model of sorts. And it was just interesting that he was able to come say goodbye to me. And then it changed, and every place I went, pretty much, I began to feel presences of dead people near me. I didn't always see them, but I could feel them, and I could feel things with children. At school, I could know if a child was sad, and I went around and tried to make friends with a lot of the children that I thought were kind of like, we would say now they're emo. I befriended a lot of those children, even in elementary school, because I could feel their sadness.
Ericka, do you think that it's possible that everyone has a little bit of a psychic ability?
Yes, because, when I left psychology, I actually opened up 2 daycare centers, actually 3. And I used to watch children because my belief was that children were telepathic, and we came in this world telepathic, and dogs, cats, and all these things are communicating in the animal kingdom, and we never hear them, but they're using telepathy. So I used to watch children in my 1-year-old room and how they would play and how they would exchange toys. They wouldn't talk, but it was just an understood, hey, give me that, and so I would watch children as young as infants, and as a transition to 2-year-old room. And there were times when there was no communication given. It was just they knew. It's almost like they had an inner dialogue. And so I believe that, yes, all of us are born with a portion of telepathy and intuition. I just think that some of us have, because the way our brains are, and I compare it to autism too. I think there's some autistic children that are very, very gifted, and their brain, I think, functions sometimes like psychic brains, is that they're wired different. And those differences allow some people to be very gifted in intuition.
Yeah, I would definitely agree with you on all those points for sure. I know that you run like a workshop with your website and different things like that. It's kind of like a boot camp type deal. And I get on there and I get confused because I look at anytime I talk about psychics or mediums or clairvoyance, they start talking about all these clair things. Like, how many clairs are there, and what in the hell are they?
Well, before they were clairs, there was just basically taste, smell, touch, seeing, hearing, those type of things. So I look at, the clairs are just so complicated, just like the chakras. And I'm old school. Before I knew what a clair was, I could see dead people. I didn't need to know the name of it. So I always just kind of break it down for people. The clairs are basically your senses, your 5 senses.
Okay.
Where it goes, your 6th sense or your supersized sense is basically intuition. So everything that, we would say a person who's blind is going to use their eyesight, their clairvoyance, a person that might smell because of their blind. So I like to use the analogy of being blind a lot because blind people have heightened senses. Psychics and mediums have heightened senses, but we all have these senses. The blind is just adapted, and the way our brains are wired, we have adapted as well.
Okay. I know from what I gathered, religion and prayer play a really big role in your life, and you incorporate those things into your practices quite a bit, it seems like. Now, what would you say to those who would disagree with you on this? Because I know there's plenty of people out there that would consider like religion and mediumship or religion and the practice of psychic abilities to be kind of a sacrilege thing. What do you say to those people?
Well, I was reading the lady today, and I told her to go to church. And there's oftentimes that, I was reading another person recently, and we discussed. I said, I see you dancing in the woods. She was Wiccan. So I think that our spirit guidance from above knows your place in your practice, and they're going to utilize those tools to help you within co-creating the map of your life. And so, yes, there are times, because I am from a religious, Baptist mindset, but I always say I'm spiritual because I've learned things from every path and appreciate every path and honor every path and respect them. But, yes, I do tell people sometimes, depending on their faith base, if you can't go to church because you don't want to be seen, go to a hospital. Every hospital that I'm aware of basically has some kind of place of religion. And sometimes they're multi-faith places. And sometimes you can go and talk to your creator or your religious path through that process. I told a lady today, go to the lake and talk to your higher power. Church is wherever you want it to be, or your spiritual connection. So, yeah, I'm very spiritual. I'm not, I still curse. I'm not holier than thou. I'm real. But, yes, I do have a strong belief in spirituality, and I do believe that these things go hand in hand. And I kind of think I attribute mine to being extra paranoid of demons. So, since I'm trying to stay away from them, yes, I'm not Catholic, but I have rosaries in my home. And, I burn frankincense and myrrh, and I'm an eclectic spiritual hippie. Yeah.
I get it. Hey, there's nothing wrong with that. And I know I do want to talk about your Devil's Point experience a little bit later, but I want to try to get as much time in with you before the weird stuff starts happening, because, every time something like that's brought up, weird stuff happens on these shows.
Yeah, I've already got my frankincense myrrh resin and my charcoal ready to start burning when we when we delve into that negative vibe. It was definitely an experience.
Yeah, I can't wait to hear about it, but I have a few more questions for you. So, because I just love picking people's brains when I get them on as a guest, because, it gets the information out there, and I'm really interested in it. So your website is www.coldcasepsychic.com, and you've helped a bunch of missing persons and cold case files throughout your career. What got you into this and using your gifts to help with these cases?
Well, back a long time ago when I was in college, I used to watch Unsolved Mysteries. And at the time, I was dating a guy who wanted to be a police officer. His dad had died in the line of duty, and it was just a weird connection that we had. And so I would, be in my apartment watching television, and I would kind of go into what I would call a trance. And then next thing I know, I'd be seeing somebody that they were talking about on the television, and I would be where they were. And sometimes I could see, like the face of this person or the face of the perpetrator. And oftentimes I felt like my body, when I was laying down at night, sometimes I felt like my body would leave and go someplace else. And I would be shown things that were kind of scary. And so it happened so much that I felt like, hey, I have the same curse or gift that my mom has. So what am I supposed to do with it? If y'all keep showing me you're dead and somebody killed you, maybe I'm supposed to help you. So I started doing research on, how I were to use this gift. And I started looking at Unsolved Mysteries and seeing things, and started faxing stuff and sending information and calling in and feeling like I was crazy, but did it anyway. And that's how I started. I started because I was thinking I was crazy, majoring in psychology because I was seeing people and hearing people. And I was a little concerned. I won't deny it. I was a little concerned with my mental state. But I realized that the things that I was seeing and hearing and feeling were true. And that's when it became real and scary.
And now, police departments, you work pretty close with some police departments and some different agencies like that. How many of these cases would you say you worked on? Just a guess.
Over the years, so when I started out, I created a forum, and I would just basically, I had my daycare center, and I would go home and I would work these cases that people would send me. A lot of times it started out, you got a missing person or a murder or something. You send me like a piece of clothing because I at that time thought I needed to use psychometry by touching the item. So they'd mail me something, a photo of someone, and then I would go into like a trance state with a recorder in my bra. And I would just say everything I saw, see, felt, heard, tasted, everything. I mean, because I would taste stuff too. And then I would send that recording, little cassette tape actually, back to the family or to the law enforcement agency or whoever it was who had requested the information. And I did that for many, many years. And it was on the down low. And then eventually I started coming out of the closet as a paranormal psychic, and I closed my daycare centers, sold them, and then kind of became a full-time medium. But in the years, some of the ones that I would say, there have been a lot, but some of the ones that I would say that are most heart-wrenching for me definitely was a girl here in town by the name of Samira. Tina Wilkerson was one. Tina Wilkerson was one. Patricia Leanne Peterson was one. The Peterson girl was one of the first ones that I actually did, because I remember her mom sent me something, and then I went into trance, and I sent her the recording. She then sent the recording. Basically was me seeing a body propped up against a tree behind a truck stop. The body was basically tied there and propped, like positioned. And I sent her, I guess, the recording of this. I don't remember what I told her. And she sent me an email later on, probably, I think, 4 months later. And she said that the FBI had confirmed that Tina's body, Patricia's body, sorry, I'm flipping names, had been found en route 47. Also did give her that because I was in the email, in Arizona, propped up against the tree behind the truck stop. Now, when I read that email, and I still have it to this day, I got afraid because the visions that I was seeing was of this girl going in a truck, and I could see the hat. I to this day remember this hat because it had turkey feathers on it, and I had to do research on what feathers these were. And I remember she got in this truck, she sat down, he put his hand on her leg, and I got a bad feeling, and then it went blank. And that's the next thing I saw was that body. To this day, I remember that. But it scared me so bad because I began to wonder and worry about the safety of my own household and my children. And so they were never allowed to play outside by themselves. And I became more, I guess, on the down low, as we say, about the ability to do this. So I just kind of went undercover. And so it was, and then I stopped doing it so much, out in the open. So a lot of the cases that I received were people that kind of knew that I could do this, but I wasn't out there saying it. And I know that there was one case that actually hit the news that I helped with, and I freaked out. I think it was a penance case. And then I was like further in the closet about it. But later on, I came to terms with it and just realized once I got haunted in this new house that I bought that I was supposed to do something with this. And I decided to just do it. The rest is her story.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing. And it's really awesome that you're using your gifts for something like that to help families get closure and to help find missing people. It's really to me a special thing that you do that for people. I mean, it's awesome.
Thank you. I've kind of finding the people to me are not my objective so much right now, because that can be hard to deal with. Giving closure or giving hope is kind of where I'm guided to right now. If a mom or something wants to talk to me about their child or dad, I like to spread that love never dies. That's kind of my thing now. Finding the bodies are not that important to me on the bigger level, because the body is just, someplace other than the need of closure. But the love that person has for that family member, that is the most important thing to me. Giving that love, that communication beyond the grave is what I live for. This is what I love to do.
All right. Yeah, I appreciate that about you. I like that about you. So I notice a lot, like when I was going through your website and through your workshops, there was a lot about meditation on there. Why is meditation such an important thing? And do you think it's only important for somebody with psychic abilities, or do you think it's an important thing for everybody to do?
So meditation, I think, gets a bad rap because people think that, I hear people say all the time, I just can't meditate because I can't quiet my mind. Well, guess what? Meditation isn't about quiet the mind. Meditation is listening to some AC/DC if you need to listen to some AC/DC. Meditation is walking. Meditation is running. It can be in movement. It can be quiet. It can be noisy. It can be art. It can be so many things. My meditation, I like to listen to music. I mean, I play a lot of music on my Facebook page. And then at night, sometimes I'll listen to some of, the different frequency things. But I always tell people meditation is as simple as this. Closing your eyes with intent, like prayer, and listening to receive. Receiving doesn't have to be a quiet brain. It doesn't have to be stillness. It just has to be the intent. So if you want to meditate, it doesn't have to be, oh, my God, I can't concentrate because I'm thinking about I got to pay this bill and no, just put it out there. Hey, I'm looking for some insight. Close your eyes and listen. If you don't get anything, sometimes insight is given to you in synchronicities or God winks. It's not always answered in that meditative state. Sometimes it's just walking outside and running into someone, and the synchronicities start after that.
Yeah, I get a lot of those in my life, man. I'm telling you, it's really crazy. Some of the synchronicities that happen with me, but I like it. It's kind of neat, It's a neat thing.
Yeah.
But I want to ask you, how do spirits communicate with you exactly? Like, how do they do it?
So I say gifted or cursed with all of the senses. They will show me things. So I'm a clairvoyant. I am a clairsentient. So that's like the feeling, the emotion, the trauma, the empathy, basically. I am clairaudient, so I literally hear voices. Those voices are never trying to tell me to hurt myself or anything like that. They're usually details that they're trying to say. And there are sometimes conversations, and sometimes they're just random statements. And then I smell things. I have clararoma. And so what smelling things can be is a lot of times for me, it's not the perfume that everybody says that they smell on the ghost hunt. It's sometimes smoke. Sometimes it is just sometimes like an odor of, like I call it an old place smell. It's just like you can walk into an older person's home sometimes, and there's a smell. So sometimes I smell that. I have smelled tobacco. I have smelled like a metallic. I've tasted a metallic Clairgustus. I've tasted metallic blood. I've tasted dirt. And there's a smell of death that's hard to explain, but I've smelled that too. So I, unfortunately, like I said, have them all. And so I don't get all of them at one time, but they all are on my register.
Okay. That's really interesting. I would love to be able to just smell anything. I've had my nose broke about 10 times and I can't smell anything. So it would be awesome just to be able to smell anything at this point in my life. But I know that we're going to talk about some of the negative things that you've experienced, but the one question I want to ask you is, how do you protect yourself from these dark entities or dark energies? Like, what do you do? Obviously, you don't want them to get in because you open yourself up as a psychic. How do you go about protecting yourself?
That's a great question because, I get emails all the time about people saying, hey, I was psychic when I was little. I really want to do it again. I really want to understand how to use my abilities. And then the first thing I'll say, are you in a good mental place? Because if you're not in a good mental place, then you definitely don't want to be, dabbling in the spirit world. And no, I tell people I'm not perfect. I'm not an angel. I don't float. I don't float on water. No, I'm just an average crazy mama. So the good place that I speak of is, if you're suicidal, if you're depressed, if you're all these things, you don't want to dabble in this, So make sure your mind is right before you get started. I'll also say definitely find your faith base, whatever that is. And luckily, we have people on our team that are Wiccan, we have Christian, we have Catholic, we probably have a Buddhist, we have any and everything you want to think of on our team right now. So the diversity to help people is so wonderful. And then, you definitely want to have some type of a protection. What I personally use, my go-to is I have many medallions blessed by different priests that I've met along my journey. So those are sacred for me. I have rosaries that I also like, and I have them hanging in my room. And I always say, if I ever see one stand up, I'm out. I love essential oils. My go-to is really frankincense and myrrh. I like, the Palo Santo that everybody likes, the sage and mixture. I mix mine up together and kind of burn it over charcoal. So I will blender sage and Palo Santo to make it really fine, like a powder, because I don't really like the smell of it. And then I'll add that with some wonderful frankincense and myrrh. I like angelica. I'm more of an essential oil, a resin person. In prayer, prayer is so important. And, not that I am praying to God and asking God to only help me. I'm talking to my ancestors. I'm talking to the people that I'm trying to help's ancestry. Hey, look, I'm trying to help this person. Y'all watch out for me. Watch over me. And so I have learned also to remove myself from places that I don't feel that are right for me. And that has been a journey, because sometimes you feel in your gut instinct that you shouldn't do this, and you shouldn't. And so I think in helping people get forward in their intuition, there's nothing wrong with it. Just make sure you have a good practice of faith. Make sure you have we call it rituals of protection, but, I basically say that, you have a bag of protection in some things, and the intent is so important. I like to kind of start out with my readings in the highest good of all. Some people use light protection. It just depends. But that's what I do to kind of have a grounding of protection and allowing God to work its way, through my life to help me stay protected and stay away from demons. That's kind of the thing. Okay. That's the vision.
Hey, if it works, it works, So when you're doing a reading for somebody and they want to contact like a deceased loved one or something like that, how many times, for whatever reason, is that not possible?
Well, people will ask me, is it too early? They just died today. Is it too early? And I'll say, no, sometimes it's not, because when they're in the hospital, they're able to go where they need to go. Sometimes they go and tell you, hey, goodbye in a dream. Sometimes I've seen them ring phones, before they die. And my grandmother did that to some family members. She called them on the phone before she died, and I still have not figured out how Betty did that, but she did. So I think it's all about the spirit's free will, Am I able to read everybody and pull everybody to the telephone of the dead? No. There have been people that I've not been able to connect with. And so sometimes I say, oh, wait, you don't want to talk to the chocolate psychic? I'll make a funny joke with it. And sometimes it's just that they don't choose to. And I've seen a lot of psychics that have fallen flat because they don't get anything and they just feel this need to, oh, I can't be wrong and I can't not make a connection. And so let me just throw out some garbage and it falls. And it's always not a good thing. So ego is very important in this business, and honesty. And not everybody is going to be able to be read, and that's okay. That's a part of the journey. Their free will.
All right. So, in your professional opinion, is reincarnation a thing? I've always wanted to ask a psychic this. Is it a thing?
Well, I have not personally had that experience in my readings. I have not had anybody, and I've asked because, I was kind of curious about that. I had a situation with a little girl one time that was standing next to an infant. And she told me she was in there, she was that or something. And I thought maybe she was trying to tell me she was reincarnated. And I was so excited about it because I wanted to come back as, I don't know, an animal or something. And she was like, she was trying to explain to me when I finally explained it to the parents that drove from Canada to meet me. They said to me, no, that was our baby. We lost a baby. And it was a little girl. It was a newborn. So that girl that I saw was of the age that she would be, but she was showing me an infant, and that's how she died. So I understand that not to be she was reincarnated in an infant. She's just saying, hey, that was me. I have not yet, God willing, I have not had anybody tell me they've come back as another person. But I do believe that DNA does travel down the bloodline. So we're all interconnected. And so when people have those memories of past lives, I think for me, my understanding is they could be reliving some ancestral image or connection.
Okay. What about spirit guides? Are spirit guides a real thing?
I definitely believe in spirit guides, but not in the concept of mainstream. I hear people tell me all the time, yeah, I've got like 15 spirit guides and, that spirit guide looks like that. Spirit guides change. They're not always going to be with us because I look at spirit guides as kind of like Uber spirit guide. They might pick me up at Walmart and help me cross the street because I need help. And then they might drive over to your house and do a whole nother job. And they're helpers here. If we're helpers here on earth, like a lot of our medical field, law enforcement, teachers, artists, these helpers, these people that want to make a difference, do you think when they get to heaven, they're just going to not be bored and be like, oh, let me drive down and make sure Ericka puts her seatbelt on? Is that my family? No, that was not my family. That was just some random dead person that was like, put your seatbelt on. So I think our spirit guides do change, but I truly believe in them. I have heard of people writing books, creating music, creating art, and they're inspired. Like it comes down like a wave, They don't know where it comes from. So is inspiration sometimes spiritual? I think so. Are spirit guides kind of that at times? Yes, I think so. That's what I feel.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, where do spirits go when they aren't making an appearance to us? Like where is the spirit world? Where do you feel it is?
Well, some go to the Spirit Rock and Roll Club, and some go to the Rhythm and Blues Spirit Rock and Roll Club. No, I think that the concept of heaven for me is layers to this. There's levels to this. And so when I see spirits go up, like how sometimes I go up and I don't even know how I travel to people's houses and start walking around from Pensacola, Florida in my bed or office. Spirits have, the ability to do that better than I. And so I just feel that heaven is kind of like this multi-dimensional place somewhere in outer space, but they're able to kind of come through and they have like the same kind of concept. I've seen some of it, like not all of it, but it's like they have the same things we have. It's like they got everything we got. It's just a whole different dimension. And so we're here dealing with all this energy and emotion and anger and fear, and they're just loving, like literally loving light, cliche as it might sound. It's a beautiful, beautiful feeling, unfortunately, when you pass. And some of those that have, almost died, some of them don't want to come back because it's such a different vibration that we as humans aren't used to.
Yeah, that was you kind of answered a couple of my questions there. I like it. See, that you make my job so easy. I don't have to. I like it. All right. So animals, do animals have spirits? Do they have souls? Because here's the thing. My wife and I, we talk about my dog he's a sweetheart, big black lab. I love him. I can look at this dog and I know that, he loves me and I love him, and he's amazing. Now the cats, on the other hand, are cats. They're pretty much, to me, soulless beings. They just want to eat me, but I think that certain animals do have a soul. What do you feel about that?
I believe all animals have a soul. And I'll tell you two funny experiences that I had to just validate that. So I was doing a psychic fair one day, and I was reading this guy, and all of a sudden I saw this turtle, okay? And I saw the turtle like being bloody, and, shell was broken and all this other stuff. This guy, grown man, starts crying, okay? He says to me, my brother basically dropped or killed or something his turtle, and he never got over it. That turtle was his best friend growing up. He took that turtle every place. And like that turtle, I guess he had a pretty, rough childhood. So that turtle was like a teddy bear stuffed animal for him, of comfort. And so when it was hurt, he never forgot that. And so for me to see the soul of this turtle, it was a reptile, like a snake. It was kind of cool. I also saw that with a snake, some uncommon animals. Like I was able to see a snake that was a pet for someone that they loved a lot, And so when you ask me about animals, we always think about the dog being the man's best friend and, it having that spiritual connection and soul. As we look at dogs go to heaven, I believe all animals have spirits, even deers. I mean, just everything that's living and breathing has a spirit and a soul. So, yes, they definitely do.
Well, listen, I'll have to disagree because my cats definitely don't have souls. I'm telling you, they look at me like they just want to pulverize me. Like if they were my size, I would be dead. That's the cats would eat me. I'm telling you. So let's get into the craziness. Let's talk about Devil's Point, and let's see if we get any weirdness. So take me back to that investigation. Like, why this particular place, and why did you feel compelled to investigate there, first of all?
Well, it is a local area, and so the area has had, history over the years. Like in the 70s, people would go out there and party, and during the 70s, like my mom's time, there was kind of like a hippie vibe going around, and there was a lot of people doing, New Age. We call it New Age religion. So it was known that there were people that would go out in the woods and do ritualistic stuff. Now, some of that ritual stuff wasn't negative because, a lot of times Wiccans get a bad rap for their religion because in the Bible Belt of, Florida, Pensacola, people didn't know what it was. So they thought they were doing devil worship, and they weren't. But there were also rumors of things like that. So the history of that property goes back way back. The lady lost land, and so it was allegedly cursed. There was all this rumor, okay?
Right.
And then it became like a cruise spot for people to pick up, relationships. And there was robbery. There was just so many different things that have happened over the years. So we, as a child, I had heard the rumors. Different people had heard the rumors. They tried to clean up the area, the tourist attraction of the community, and try to clean it up and delete all the things online that, attributed to the history. So we went out there and we were like, okay, let's see really if this place is haunted. Initially, it was okay, and then things changed. But yeah, it was just primarily to debunk the history, the hidden history of that location that's been basically removed from social media. I could find hardly anything. I had to go to microfiche and the records on the newspaper records to find the good history of the location.
And what is the good history of the location? Was there murder there? Was there like suicide? What is the actual real hard history there?
Okay, so we had a train wreck there. We had a girl who had shot her boyfriend there. We had rapes there. We had a plane crash there. We had brutal murders there. We had suicides by train. We had vandalism. We've had several deaths. We've had drownings. We've had car accidents. So there's numerous deaths that are literally, documented, not say he say, she say. These are documented deaths. And all of them stretch in that area. And there's so many that it would not make any sense that all of these deaths and suicides have happened in this, small amount of location. So that's what kind of led the community as a whole to kind of think that this place had to be cursed. And so that was what really drew us to it. But there's numerous things that I probably won't even find, but I had heard rumors about things for years at that location, especially in the 60s and 70s.
All right. One of the things I'm really interested in when I do research on things is, well, I'm really into like genealogy, but besides that, when I do research on like a particular location, the thing that I'm interested in is what types of, like, what's the land like there? You mentioned railroad tracks, and that is a bell for me. It rings a bell for me. What about like rock formations or running water or Native American ties? Is there any of that in there?
Yeah, there was actually, that location basically was is quartz crystal. I mean, I live in Pensacola, and we're known for our white sandy beaches, but this also had the red, blood-like clay. And the water is definitely there. It's a cliff, so you've got the ocean. It basically butts up to the ocean. And there were Native Americans there. There were the Yamasee Indians there that lived in that area, and they basically lived off the land. They lived off the water. And during the war, they were wiped out. They were, of course, given disease, and they were pretty much traveled up the Trail of Tears, and they were kind of like exited from the land. That actual tribe did not survive. It went into other tribes, as some Native American tribes did, but there are no Yamasee Indians anymore. That bloodline was totally wiped out. So the history there is definitely the quartz formation. I think it's just the perfect storm of history. We always tease about the Native American, sacred land, but I honestly believe that there's some truth to that.
Yeah, it is. It is definitely. I think there is as well. So everybody and their brother knows about, like, the quartz obviously is a big draw to the paranormal. Native American. I don't think that railroad tracks and running water get their fair shake in that, because there's a lot of weird things that happen around running water or water and having to do with the paranormal, and also railroad tracks for whatever reason. I don't understand it, but it all seems like I feel like those two things there don't get their fair shake. And with everything there, it definitely, you've got something there,
Yeah, it's kind of like I moved into a house when my psychic abilities really in heightened, like went to the floor. I had bought a house near power lines, so I had a constant source of energy, like right next to me. I think with the water, Mother Ocean is a power source. I mean, we use that to make power, so it is full of energy. And then you've got the train tracks with inertia, basically going up the tracks full speed. That's energy too. So like I said, it's kind of like a perfect storm. You've got the quartz, basically making the other areas of energy kind of
multiplying,
larger, bigger, huge. Yeah.
Wow, that's crazy. So you mentioned that the activity there at the site didn't start right away for your investigation. So what was the actual first experience of that night?
Well, so we were at the chimney the first day because we did this in multiple days, and so we were at the chimney, and the chimney basically was an establishment before. It was basically a place that was a mill, and it was burnt down, and General Braxton Bragg, basically was holding there. He was a Confederate soldier. He was holding there, and he basically, they burned everything down, okay? They burned everything down to the ground, basically. So that was history there, and as Richard Johnson was on my team, and Brian Lee Wally was there, and Reebok was there, and they basically were doing, communicating with the spirit. And this spirit started out kind of attacking Richard. He was saying, Richard asked him, like, what do you want? And he said something like, you. And then you could hear like another voice in the background, a woman. And it was just interesting because a lot of the conversation, some Spanish too, was attached to attacking Richard. It was like basically wanting Richard, okay?
All right.
So, but we didn't actually see or hear all that and stuff until we did, we listened to it and we were filming and we had the playback. The next day we go into the other area, which is the bluffs, where most of the death happened, okay? We're in the daytime. Things are good. We're getting EVPs. We're talking to Dean and several other people that have died. We're talking about the tracks. We're emotional because we know suicide has happened and the train derailment that killed people where ammonia actually spilled all on the cart. And I could see, people dying, being burned. And, it was just a traumatic experience, but it was peaceful in some way. As night falls, the shadow figures began, and we saw them in the daytime, but they weren't ominous. As night began, as the sun began to set, and the shadows would start kind of taunting, and everybody could feel the shift of energy. So when night came, everything changed.
Kind of like a movie, almost. It's
when darkness falls. It was it almost should have been entitled that. It actually, literally, everybody felt different at night. And I was trying to encourage them to get out of there because, we're the first one to leave the scene in the movie, but they just didn't want to do it. And so
they never listen, do they?
By default.
They never listen, just like the movies. They never listen. That's awesome. So other than like the EVPs, were there, how were the electromagnetic fields and did you happen to get were there any good photos out of this spot?
Well, it was night at the time. We did take photos, but we didn't get anything. Like we had a camera guy and our videographer, basically, or most of the team were taking photos, but we had a video photographer there too, Calvo Griffin. And we didn't get anything that I'm aware of that showed any kind of picture of them all. There was nothing there. But when we started to play, we were using different devices. Everybody felt things, I'll start with Dawn. She was walking down the train tracks and she felt something touch her. Dawn Hope, she's on our team. She's our case manager. She's a real estate agent, so she's a logical minded girl, she felt something touch her and, she didn't think nothing about it. We did the investigation. She goes to go to her car. She don't have her keys. They're gone.
Oh, wow.
So that was one of the things. There was so much that happened while we were there, but most of the experiences that we had individually, even on site, were just individual experiences. There weren't anything that I would say that we kind of picked. We got video stuff, yeah, definitely, but we didn't get any photographs of things.
All right. So what were the main experiences or attacks? Like when did it get bad? How did it get bad?
Okay, so we were on the train tracks and we were kind of talking to this guy named Dean who we heard his name. We asked him, hey, who are you? Dean. Okay, so we got Dean live on camera. Okay, Dean died. How did he die? He told us he was hit with a bat. That's basically, or no, he was shot. There were different deaths, but we asked questions and we got specific answers for all the questions that we asked. It was crazy. I mean, it was unbelievable. We eventually decide, I'm seeing all these shadow figures and I'm telling them, hey, we need to go home. It's time to ride out. And Richard's like, no, let's go over there. He was our daredevil. And so we go in the woods and we sit down and we start talking to people. I walk off because I start talking to this gentleman who was murdered. He was actually beat to death on the train tracks and robbed. I start talking to him. And then I come back and they're having, all these weird experiences of this guy saying, he wants to shoot some. I mean, it's just crazy, crazy stuff. And so I feel that one of the spirits wants us to go over to the left side. And I'm telling them, nobody go over there because there has to be a drop or something and they want to hurt you. Well, I shouldn't have never said that because guess what? Richard decides that he wants to go over there because, he's that daredevil, right? He's walking, and I get up, and we all go over there, and we're trying to stop him, and, he's a man. So he walks, and there's this drop, and he says, you were trying to hurt me, weren't you? And then sooner or later, his leg starts burning, and he's scratched, okay? So he gets scratched on scene. We pray for him. As we're praying for him, trying to cleanse him with Florida water and all these things, his hat moves back. And I jump up and say, your hat just moved. But I think I cursed a little bit. So then I go home, and then, I'm thinking nothing is wrong and everything's good. Valerie goes home. Valerie Shakespeare, she's our crime expert. Her house floods the same night. There's a pipe that burst in the middle of her house. She wakes up sometime in the morning. She's walking around in water. And she said that when she walked around in this water, trying to figure out what happened, she thought maybe like her washer machine and, had, leaked or something. And she had water. She's trying to clean it up and it just kept coming out. She says the more it came out, it was coming from under the ground. So guess what? You saw blood. It looked like blood, but it was actually the clay dirt, just like where we just left. Now, Valerie lives right down the street from the location. She was so close. She was, she's right down the street. So we think it kind of went from that location to Valerie's house, burst the pipe, went to my house, got me in the bathtub, also drained my battery so I couldn't leave the house the next morning. It went to Richard, pulled the ceiling fan down. All of them had nightmares. All of them had Sabrina saw some spirits in the window. So there were so many of us that had experiences. But I would say Valerie Shakespeare, our crime expert, she was the one who had the worst. I mean, she literally moved out of that house because she kept seeing the same entity that I kept seeing and that I dreamed about before we even went. So everybody was affected. Some were worse. But my experience in the bathtub, I don't really like to talk about it, but I was burned. I was scratched or burned, however you want to look at it, on my back. And I could see the shadow figure, and it was the same thing that Valerie described in her home. So he followed each and every one of us home and did something, It wasn't good stuff.
Wow, that's it. That's really insane because, a lot of times people think that just because they leave and in a scene or site that's the end of it. But sometimes, I mean, you guys did protect yourself after you left and cleansed yourself and did all that, right?
We did. But, I honestly, because at the time when this was all happening, I was like, and I guess this is naive. I thought that I just got out, because Valerie hadn't called yet. and it was only on Richard. And so we just thought, well, Richard asked for it, and, that's what happens. And I just kind of I didn't do as much because I didn't feel like I had to, I didn't feel like it was going to attack me. So when I went home, I took the bath and did the prayer and all this other stuff that I would normally do but that's when it got me in the bathtub. And then I woke up to, the information about Valerie and her house flooding. And I think what we learned as a team is more so about what to not do in an investigation. Sometimes you have team members that we were never disrespectful, I don't think, to the spirits. But sometimes people are wanting things that I don't want them to want, and those experiences can affect the other team. So if you have someone on the team who wants to have an experience that's going for a certain thing, or that are going to antagonize spirits, don't think that they'll just stop with you. They can affect everybody on the team that didn't sign up for it.
Yeah, I mean, I'm with you on that. I definitely agree with you there for sure. So do you think that this, because of all these different energy sources and everything there, that this is just like do you think the place is evil, or do you think that it is just a conglomeration of spirits that are drawn to these different sources of energy?
Well, in the daytime, it's sunny, it's families. You'll see people out there taking photos. If you were to tell somebody this happened, in the daytime, they'd be nah. But nighttime, they believe it because the energy totally changes. What I have come to understand about this location is that it is definitely a conglomeration of different energies there. But that one particular energy that we interacted with, the shadow figure that I kept seeing and that we all did see, that was in by train and out by train. I don't think it was resident of that location because it said to me it came by train. And when we finished the investigation and we were like Sabrina had done a land clearing and she was walking around talking to the Native Americans saying, just like doing a blessing, the train comes by. And I hear it left by train. It came by train and left by train. And then it was like such a peaceful feeling. But all it did was go from the train to Valerie's house. Yeah. So it was just a crazy feeling. But yes, I think that there is a residual energy on that land of death and destruction and fear and loathing and pain and murder that negative energies are very attracted to, and I think that energy is still there and still can come there, and that's why I will not be going back to that location.
I was going to ask you if you'd go back. I was going to ask you that.
Oh gosh, no. Some of the team members that were on the team, they did go back a year later and did a spoof movie, but we made the joke, the black girls on the team weren't going back because we know better. We've seen Scary Movie. We know that we're supposed to leave and let y'all stay there. We weren't having it. So, yeah.
I'd be right there with you. I'd be right there with you. So I would not be going back there either. That is really crazy, man. And usually in these investigations, paranormal investigations, if there's a negative energy there, usually it's the psychic medium or the psychic that takes the brunt of that energy. So, I mean, yeah, you'll have a team member here, a team member there that may individually experience something as well. But for the most part, I think that someone in your profession takes the brunt of that energy during these investigations. So it seems absolutely crazy to me that everyone, literally everyone, was affected by this that night, by this investigation, this energy. How powerful is that energy to be able to manifest like on the entire team like that? It's pretty powerful, right?
Yeah, and the beauty about our team, though, the ones who were affected the most are some of the most intuitive people on the team. like Richard, for instance, I literally sometimes would say, I and Sabrina and Don and Valerie, we're ghost magnets because we're super intuitive. Like we feel things, and most of them on the team are very psychic. So the fact that it was able to connect with us more so and come to us in the dream state, even before we went on this investigation, we all had nightmares. And I tried to talk them out of it. I was like, we really shouldn't go there.
Yeah.
But, we had to shoot an episode. So we were like, let's go. And I have learned to follow that instinct. It would be more like, y'all go, I'll stay out. I'll save this one out next time. Because I have to look at my physical, spiritual, and mental health. A lot of times we have to do what's best for us. And if a person is in a bad place, some of my team members became suicidal after this, after this investigation. It had prior issues. It basically made them worse. And so, I always say the paranormal is a real thing. Be careful.
Well, listen, I'm telling you right now, if we go out on an investigation and you, for whatever reason, say that you're not going or you're not going back, I'm not going either. I'm staying right there. I'm not doing it either because it's how to I would say protect yourself or to deal with these things more than anybody. And if you're saying you're not going, I'm not going. So.
Yeah, and I think it was just, a perfect storm of different things, different people dealing with the emotional things and, that spirit feeding into that. And, sometimes negative spirits will only amplify the negativeness in yourself in order to destroy you or hurt you or harm you. So, even those in the paranormal, we don't have to be perfect people, but we need to make sure we're in a mindset before we go on these investigations because, these energies can wreak havoc. And we attract sometimes some negative things because we're dealing with some negative things. And that's the understanding, I think, that happened here, that this spirit took advantage of the vulnerableness of some of my team members. And others, they took advantage of the strength because with Valerie, she is definitely not vulnerable, but she was basically close to the location. And it wanted to exert its power. And she's a very powerful, like she's a correctional criminal justice major with, master's degrees. So she's not a wallflower. She's strong, but it was stronger. It was just one of those unbelievable experiences.
Yeah, for sure. It is crazy. Well, hey, Ericka, I really appreciate you coming on the show. I really was, I'm glad I got to talk to you. I'm excited and I was excited to talk with you and I'm glad we got the chance. I'm glad we made it work. Where can everybody find everything about you or get in contact with you if they need to or find out what's coming up next for you? Where can they do that at?
So you can go to coldcasepsychic.com, and if you can remember my name, my whole name, ErickaBoussarhane.com, is available to check out too. I love for people to check out secondsightparanormal.com. That's the team, and we make little fun movies, that are on some of the streaming platforms. You can watch us on Paraflix.com. We love to plug Paraflix because we do hope that listeners will look into creating their own paranormal things and maybe reaching out to them to see about putting their stuff on the platform. It's just a universal, welcoming platform that I totally dig. And, all of our team members do different things. So if you're interested in, learning more about what, some of the gifts are, like I said, we've got artists on our things. We've got a live show where we're going to be selling, rocks and stones and crystals. And I'm doing live readings, and it's only like $30 to join, and that's this Sunday. But all of this can be found out about on my Second Sight Paranormal Facebook page. Find me on Second Sight Paranormal and find me on Facebook and like or friend me.
Awesome. Well, Ericka, like I said, I really appreciate you coming on. It was great talking with you. I'd like to have you back on sometime and talk about more crazy, fun things.
I would love to join you again. And I'd love to do some readings, if there's a way that we can have people call in or Skype in or something or in a chat room.
Yeah, maybe we'll do that next time.
That. Or read you. It sounds wonderful. Let's do it.
Yeah, let's do that next time. Let's definitely put that together.
All right, sounds great. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Me.
No problem at all. I enjoyed it. You have a good night, Ericka.
You too.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.